Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real events, locations, or individuals is purely coincidental. Some scenes may contain suspense, mild horror, or emotional intensity intended for mature audiences. Reader discretion is advised. The road stretched endlessly ahead, bathed in the soft glow of the fading evening sun. I glanced at the fuel gauge, realizing we had just enough to reach the next town, or so I hoped. My companion, Jenna, sat beside me, humming a tune to calm her nerves. It was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway, a small adventure away from the chaos of our daily lives. We had packed lightly, carried snacks, and filled the car with excitement and anticipation. But life has a way of tossing the unexpected at the most inconvenient moments. It started as a low rumble beneath the tires, a warning whisper we initially ignored. Then, the car shuddered violently, the engine coughing, and the lights flickered ominously. I pulled over, heart racing, as smoke began curling faintly from under the hood. I grabbed the flashlight from the glove compartment, illuminating the dashboard in harsh, white beams. Nothing seemed salvageable. The car refused to start again. Jenna's hand found mine, her grip tight, a mix of fear and reassurance. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Around us, the road was desolate, lined with dense trees, their shadows stretching across the cracked asphalt like dark fingers. Not a soul in sight. My phone screen showed no signal. Not even a single bar. We were stranded. Alone. Vulnerable. Panic clawed at the edges of my mind, but I forced it back, focusing instead on solutions. There had to be a motel, a gas station, something nearby. I remembered seeing a small sign a few miles back mentioning a rest inn. It felt like a faint glimmer of hope in the thickening darkness. We gathered our bags, grabbed a couple of essentials, and started walking, the car's broken form shrinking behind us in the growing gloom. The trees seemed to whisper as the night settled, their branches scratching against the cold air. Every snap of a twig, every distant rustle, made our pace quicken. After what felt like an eternity, we spotted it, a building emerging from the darkness, its sign flickering weakly: Silver Pines Hotel. Relief washed over us, tempered with a strange unease. The hotel looked welcoming enough, yet something about its stillness made me hesitate. We pushed open the heavy doors, the creak echoing through a surprisingly empty lobby. A single receptionist looked up, smiling in a way that felt just slightly off. We exchanged brief pleasantries, booked a room, and headed upstairs. Our steps echoed in the narrow hallway lined with dim, antique lamps. Finally, in our room, we sank onto the beds, exhaustion overtaking us. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows. Inside, an uneasy feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake the sense that this night, this unexpected stay, was only the beginning. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains, casting pale light across the room. Despite the faint warmth of daylight, the uneasy feeling from last night lingered. Jenna was already awake, sitting by the window, sipping from a small paper cup of hotel coffee. Her brow was furrowed, eyes scanning the horizon as though trying to decipher whether the world outside held any comfort. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked, my voice hoarse from the long drive and tension of the previous night. "Not really," she admitted, setting the cup down. "I kept hearing noises. Footsteps, maybe? Or was it just the wind?" I nodded, though I hadn't heard anything myself. The hotel had an eerie stillness that made every small sound feel magnified. But last night's ordeal left us exhausted, and the need to regroup outweighed any fear. We packed our few belongings, planning to explore the area and perhaps find someone who could help fix the car. Downstairs, the lobby looked different in the daylight. The dim shadows of the night were replaced with a slightly more mundane scene, a polished floor, the receptionist now bustling with small tasks, and a few other guests quietly sipping their breakfasts. Yet, something about the place still felt off. There was a silence beneath the normal activity, a kind of tense anticipation, like the hotel itself was holding its breath. We approached the front desk, trying to shake the uneasy feeling that had settled like a weight in my chest. "Good morning," I said. Do you know if there's a mechanic nearby? Our car broke down last night. The receptionist smiled, a tight, measured curve that didn't quite reach the eyes. There's a small garage a few miles down the road, but it's closed today. The next closest one is much further. I recommend you rest here until tomorrow. Jenna exchanged a worried glance with me. Rest here, she echoed. We can't just stay, we need to do something. The receptionist's smile remained, calm and unwavering. It's quite safe. You'll see. Sometimes, a place like this gives people exactly what they need, even if they don't realize it at first. Her words were cryptic, unnervingly precise. I forced a nod, trying to hide the suspicion creeping up in my mind. We were led down a long hallway toward another room, one that had been prepared for us. The walls were lined with vintage paintings, portraits of people whose eyes seemed to follow us as we walked. The carpet was thick, plush, almost muffling our footsteps entirely. Despite the warm decor, a cold draft lingered, brushing against our skin. As we entered the room, Jenna's eyes widened. It's bigger than I expected, she said, trying to sound lighthearted. The room had an old-world charm, with heavy drapes, a large bed, and a small sitting area, but beneath it all, a subtle strangeness hummed in the air. We unpacked quickly, the exhaustion from last night's breakdown and the long walk pressing down on us. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that this hotel had a story, one it wasn't telling us yet. Every corner, every shadow, whispered secrets I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. Little did we know, our stay was going to be far from ordinary. The hotel had plans of its own. Night fell quickly, faster than I expected, and the room seemed to shrink around us. The fading daylight had been replaced by shadows that clung to the corners, deep and almost tangible. Jenna and I sat on the bed, trying to make sense of the strange energy in the hotel. At first, it was small things, a soft tapping on the window when there was no wind, a distant creak from the hallway outside our room. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself it was the building settling, or maybe our imagination after the stressful day. Jenna, however, wasn't convinced. I don't like this place, she whispered, pulling the blanket closer around her shoulders. It feels alive somehow. Like it's watching us. I forced a laugh, though it rang hollow in the silence. You're letting last night get to you. We're safe here. Just a hotel, that's all. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. As I unpacked my bag, I noticed something odd. Our room number, 217, seemed faintly scratched into the floorboards near the door. It wasn't something you'd notice immediately, only the angle of the light revealed it. I bent down, brushing my fingers over the grooves. How had I not seen this before? The scratches were too deliberate to be random wear, yet there was no explanation. Then came the sound, soft, deliberate footsteps outside our door. They stopped. A pause. And then silence. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I exchanged a glance with Jenna. She was pale, eyes wide, gripping the blanket tightly. I think someone's out there, she breathed. I moved to the door, pressing my ear against the wood. Nothing. Only the faint hum of the old heating system and the occasional creak of the building. Still, the sense of being watched persisted, growing heavier with each passing minute. We decided to ignore it, hoping it was just nerves. But the room seemed to conspire against us. The lamp flickered repeatedly despite new batteries, the air conditioning kicked on and off randomly, and shadows danced on the walls, though no light source could explain them. Every time I looked at Jenna, she seemed smaller, almost fragile in the oppressive atmosphere. Hours passed. Sleep was impossible. The darkness outside pressed against the windows like a living thing, and the hotel seemed to breathe with us. Every corner, every shadow felt like it was hiding something just beyond our vision. And then, just as I began to convince myself that maybe it was all in our minds, a soft whisper echoed from the corner of the room. "Why are you here?" We froze. The voice was low, almost playful, yet unmistakably real. It didn't belong to any person we could see. Our breaths came in short gasps as we clutched each other, the room suddenly feeling far too small, far too dangerous. Something about the hotel was not right. Something about our stay was not normal. And I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The morning light filtered weakly through the curtains, but it brought little comfort. Jenna and I hadn't slept at all. The whispers, the flickering lights, and the strange shadows from the night before lingered in our minds like an unwelcome fog. Every small noise felt amplified, every creak of the floorboards, every distant thump from the walls. We decided to leave the room and find someone who could explain the hotel's odd behavior. As we stepped into the hallway, the air felt cooler, heavier somehow, as if the walls themselves were watching. Paintings of stern-faced people lined the corridor, and their eyes seemed to follow our every move. I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the growing knot of fear in my stomach. Downstairs, the lobby seemed quieter than the night before. The receptionist was gone, replaced by another staff member I hadn't noticed, a tall man with a pale face and an unnervingly calm demeanor. His eyes met mine for a brief moment before he looked away, continuing with some paperwork. "Excuse me," I began cautiously. "We were hoping to ask about the hotel, and maybe get some help with a nearby mechanic." The man's smile was polite but distant. "I see. The hotel has rules that must be respected. And the outside world, well, it is not always friendly to travelers." His words were strangely formal, almost rehearsed. Jenna shifted uneasily. "We just need to know where to get help." "Our car broke down, of course," he interrupted softly, but the tone held an edge, a subtle warning. "But some things are better addressed once you are settled here. Sometimes, rushing leads to regret." I frowned, unsure whether he was joking or serious. There was something about the way he spoke that sent a chill down my spine. He directed us toward the dining area for breakfast, but his eyes never quite left us, following our every step with an intensity that felt more predatory than professional. As we ate, I noticed other staff members moving silently, appearing and disappearing without explanation. Some seemed to glance at us with knowing expressions, while others avoided eye contact entirely. It was unsettling, as though the entire hotel functioned like a living organism, with the staff as its nervous system, monitoring every motion. Later, we explored the hotel under the pretense of finding a lounge or common area. That's when I noticed it. The hallway wasn't consistent. Rooms appeared where there shouldn't be any, doors led to walls, and staircases curved in impossible ways. Jenna noticed it too, whispering nervously that she felt like we were going in circles. We returned to our room, the strange labyrinth of the hotel gnawing at our nerves. Outside the window, shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. And as we sat on the bed, trying to make sense of the day's events, a small envelope appeared on the desk. There was no one in the room, no explanation. Inside was a single note: "Not everything is as it seems. Trust no one but yourself." The hotel had already begun to pull us deeper into its mystery, and I realized with a sinking feeling that nothing about our stay would be ordinary or safe. The rest of the day passed in a haze of unease. Jenna and I tried to distract ourselves, walking the hallways, peeking into empty rooms, searching for some logical explanation for the strange events. But every step we took seemed to pull us deeper into the hotel's secrets. Doors led to unfamiliar corridors, hallways curved impossibly, and rooms that should have been empty were furnished as if expecting someone. By late afternoon, we discovered a narrow stairwell tucked behind a service door. Curiosity overcame our fear. The stairwell spiraled downward, deeper than the hotel's blueprints should allow. Dust and faint cobwebs coated the steps, and the air grew colder with every descent. I could feel Jenna's hand tighten around mine, her nails digging in slightly as she whispered, "Are we really doing this?" "There's something here," I replied softly. "Something they don't want us to see." At the bottom of the stairwell, we found a small, dimly lit room. It smelled faintly of mildew and old wood. In the center was a collection of objects that didn't make sense: faded photographs of guests we didn't recognize, some with faces scratched out, broken clocks frozen at different times, and a journal lying open, its pages filled with strange symbols and fragmented sentences. I picked up the journal carefully. The writing seemed to shift as I read, letters and words moving slightly, like they were alive. It chronicled previous visitors to the hotel, some who had left, others who had never been seen again. The final page was a single sentence, written in jagged, uneven letters: The hotel chooses its guests. Some never leave. Jenna shivered beside me. We shouldn't be here, she whispered. We need to get out. But leaving was not so simple. As we retraced our steps, the stairwell seemed to stretch endlessly, the walls narrowing, twisting in ways that made orientation impossible. Panic began to rise in my chest. I realized the hotel wasn't just a building, it was a trap. Its corridors, rooms, and staff were designed to confuse, to test, to ensnare. Back in our room, we tried to rationalize everything. Perhaps the events were coincidences, the staff eccentric, the hotel unusually large. But deep down, we both knew that our instincts were right. This place had intentions beyond hospitality. Then came the knock. It was soft, deliberate, echoing through the room like a heartbeat. We froze, eyes locked. No one should have been outside the door, not at this hour, not without an explanation. Slowly, the knock came again, followed by a whisper carried through the thin wood. Don't leave, not yet. The hairs on my arms stood on end. Jenna grabbed my arm, shaking, her voice trembling. What do we do? I had no answer. Only the creeping realization that the hotel was aware of us, that it had been orchestrating every small fear, every flicker of light, every strange sound since the moment we arrived. And somehow it was learning, watching, waiting. We sat together in the dim room, fear knotting our stomachs, knowing that the night ahead would bring more than just darkness. The hotel had already begun its game, and there was no telling what rules it would play by next. Night descended quickly, swallowing the hotel in a thick, almost tangible darkness. Jenna and I stayed huddled in the corner of our room, our backs against the wall, the note from earlier still clutched in my hand. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind against the windows, made us jump. We both knew that something or someone was out there, and it was only a matter of time before it made itself known. Then came the sound. A slow, deliberate scraping noise outside the door. It wasn't a knock, not exactly. It was something worse, a warning. I pressed my ear to the wood, straining to hear, but the silence that followed was heavier than the noise itself. Then, without warning, the doorknob rattled violently, as though someone or something was trying to force its way in. Jenna gasped and clutched my arm. It's coming, it's coming. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to think. Stay calm. Whatever it is, we can get through this. But my words felt hollow even to me. The hotel had been building this moment since we arrived, and now it was here. The door creaked open slowly, inch by inch, revealing a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. I couldn't make out a face, just darkness where a face should have been. Its presence was suffocating, pressing against the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, but the hallway outside seemed impossibly long, twisting in ways that made escape uncertain. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. The figure tilted its head, and a hollow, chilling voice answered, You shouldn't have come here. Fear gripped me like iron. Jenna pressed herself against me, tears streaming down her face. I knew we had to act now. I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the window, desperate for a way out. But as we moved, the shadow shifted, blocking our path, growing taller, stretching impossibly as though it fed on our panic. And then the hotel itself seemed to react. The walls groaned, the floorboards bending beneath our feet, doors slamming shut in the corridors outside. The very building seemed alive, aiding the shadow, confining us. We ran, stumbling through hallways that had no end, staircases that twisted back on themselves, doors that led nowhere. Every time we thought we were close to escape, the hotel shifted, corralling us into tighter, darker spaces. Finally, we reached a room that looked familiar, our room, but slightly altered, the door now wider than it should have been. With no other options, we bolted inside and slammed the door. Panting, terrified, we sank to the floor, clutching each other. The shadow did not follow. It waited, patient, its presence seeping through the walls, through the cracks under the door. And in that moment, I realized the truth. The hotel was not merely a place. It was an entity, and we were nothing more than its guests, prey caught in a trap far older and far darker than anything we could imagine. The night stretched on, and we understood one thing with chilling clarity: confrontation had only begun. The hotel was not done with us yet. By the time dawn began to pale the sky, Jenna and I were exhausted physically, mentally, and emotionally. Sleep had eluded us entirely, replaced by the unrelenting tension of the hotel's presence. The previous night's confrontation had left its mark, an invisible weight pressing on our chests, reminding us that the shadow, or whatever it was still out there, waiting. We knew we couldn't stay any longer. The hotel had claimed our time, our fear, our attention. If we didn't act now, it might claim something far worse. "Listen," I whispered, crouched behind the bed as Jenna peered through the crack in the door. "We need a plan. The hallways, they're unpredictable, but there has to be a way out." "There has to be." Jenna nodded, her face pale but determined. "We follow the stairwell. That's where it started. Maybe it's the only way down." We packed what little belongings we had and waited until the hotel seemed to quiet, the shadows receding just slightly. Then, gripping each other's hands, we slipped out of the room and into the twisting corridors. The hallways stretched and shifted, doors appearing and disappearing, staircases bending in impossible directions. Every instinct told us to turn back, but we pressed forward, determined to escape. The stairwell we had discovered earlier loomed ahead, dark and narrow. We descended cautiously, each step groaning beneath our weight. Somewhere below, the faintest echo of movement reminded us that we were not alone. The air grew colder with each level, and our breaths misted in the dim light. Suddenly, a door slammed somewhere behind us. Jenna screamed, and I grabbed her, pulling her forward. The shadow appeared again, but this time, it seemed slower, less certain. Perhaps the hotel itself had grown weaker in the light of morning. Perhaps it had underestimated us. We reached the bottom of the stairwell and found a corridor that led outward, doors with windows revealing the first signs of daylight. Heart pounding, we pushed open the nearest exit and stepped into the fresh morning air. The hotel loomed behind us, silent and watchful as if nothing had happened. We ran to the car, our legs burning, adrenaline surging. When we reached it, relief flooded through me. The engine miraculously started on the first try, as if the hotel had finally allowed us to leave. Jenna collapsed into the passenger seat, trembling but alive. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The hotel receded into the distance, its windows dark, its presence as silent as the grave. Yet a part of me knew that it would always be there, waiting for the next unsuspecting guest, the next moment of weakness. The escape had been successful, but the experience had changed us. The hotel's influence lingered, a shadow over our thoughts, a reminder that some places are far more than they seem, and some encounters leave marks that never fully fade. The drive away from the hotel felt surreal, like emerging from a dream I didn't want to end. The trees lining the road, the distant hum of traffic, the warmth of the sun, it all seemed almost too normal after the oppressive darkness we had endured. Yet, no matter how far we went, the memory of that night clung to us, unshakable. Jenna stayed silent for most of the drive, her hands gripping the dashboard as though she could physically hold herself together. I stole glances at her, noticing the way her eyes darted to the rearview mirror, as if expecting the shadow, or the hotel itself, to appear at any moment. "I can't believe we're actually leaving," she finally said, her voice trembling. "It feels like we just woke up from something terrible, but part of me still feels trapped there." I nodded, understanding completely. The hotel wasn't just a building. It was a presence, a living entity that had drawn us in, toyed with our fears, and challenged our sanity. Even though we were physically free, its psychological imprint lingered. Every creak, every flicker of light, every sudden shadow reminded me of that night. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle changes in both of us. Small fears that had never mattered before became magnified, doors left ajar, unfamiliar sounds, the feeling of being watched. Our conversations often circled back to the hotel, to the things we saw, the whispers we heard, and the enigmatic notes left in our room. We couldn't explain it, and perhaps we never would. Friends and family asked us about the trip. "Did you have fun?" they would say. I'd smile politely, but the truth was impossible to convey. Fun wasn't the right word. Surviving might have been closer. The hotel had changed something inside us, awakened a part of our awareness we hadn't realized existed, a cautious, almost paranoid vigilance that followed us long after the road had straightened and the car hummed steadily under our hands. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself imagining the hotel, the shadow, the corridors that twisted impossibly on themselves. I think about the guests who came before us, the notes, the photographs, the whispers that promised no one ever truly leaves. And I realize that, for all its mystery and menace, the hotel had forced us to confront ourselves, our fears, our instincts, our limits. Jenna and I promised each other that we would avoid roads and hotels like that in the future. But deep down, I know that curiosity is a part of us, and perhaps one day, someone else will wander down a lonely road, see the flickering sign in the distance, and find themselves trapped in a story that never truly ends. As for us, we carry the memory like a shadow on our shoulders, unseen by others, but ever present. The hotel may be gone from sight, but it is never gone from mind. Nothing was the same again. Nothing ever would be. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, I swear I can still hear it whisper, "Welcome back, again." 20.